Okay, welcome to Great Battles of Alexander proper. This is the Chaeronea scenario. I think I've played about 2 of the scenarios out of the original game, and I may have played more since then, but when it first came out, this is not the original copy I played with. This is one I picked up, but I wanted to show you, although you can certainly look this up, but sort of the difference in the quality of the maps. This is the Chaeronea map. Look at these hideous colors on it. This was, it's funny. Sometimes people say, and look at the wide hexes for the river line and everything, where you have to actually cross the river. They treated it as a deeper river, and made some decisions as to setup that are different from what is actually presented here. But I gotta tell you, you give me something that looks like that, and my impression is going to be a lot lower. I'm actually looking at some of the old, let me think, are there Wargamers? I don't remember if it's Wargame Magazine. No, it's S&Ts, I think. Some of the old S&Ts from about the early 90s, and the font on the counters, just clipping them, I'm just not excited about playing, even though I know the game actually, the system, and I know how good it is. And my first impression of this was, the game has come a long way graphically, and so have most of, GMT has generally come a long way graphically. Anyway, because those look like old TSR era maps. Okay, so what's up with this battle? This one's really cool because you have Philip II with a very young, I think around 17, Alexander as his wing commander over here, taking over, well, he's not actually a wing commander, but taking over the cavalry. And we have the Greek Confederation here under 3 different leaders. There's not a lot too special here. There's the Greek Cav, which there's a couple of Greek Cav units. Where are they hiding? There should be. Okay, I've got a light cav here. Should be another one. Another light cav over here. So those can either be moved individually. They can't be part of a line, or by a commander as normal. Or you could just say, okay, at the beginning of any given turn, they both have a 1 commander, and I can send them off. I don't know if I have to choose both at the same time. That's the way it's worded, but I wouldn't be, no, it says may undertake with both cav units. I don't think, I think because of the choice of may there instead of must, the meaning is such that I could do only 1 and save the other one for a regular command, although the way the wording is, it's a little ambiguous. Anyway, if I do that, they won't get any momentum. And that's about it. That's the only special rule here. Alexander is not an elite leader yet. Philip is not. Our line command, well, it's actually based by nationality. And only specific leaders can command specific lines. They can only command their own forces. There's an option, because historically, the historical battle should be a blowout. We'll see, but what we've got is these 6 quality hoplites, which we've seen gets really raked over the coals by the Carthaginian army, which should have been a closer fight, versus phalanx units, which, if you recall, I don't have all my charts out yet, have a better combat table. And These phalanxes are higher quality, and then also we have some pretty high quality, really high quality lighter units that are going to cause real problems, as well as the companion cav, which is really the biggest difference between the two armies, is that Philip's bringing some quality cav into play here. Now, the Greeks should have the scared band here. Sacred band, tiny, tiny unit, 9 quality, 9 victory points, or route points if it goes off the map. Another thing we have to note is these double hex phalanxes, and I don't remember the rules on those. So since we haven't seen that before, let's see, somewhere, 9.62, this is great. This is what should be in every game. Whenever there's something, you know, especially special for the scenario, it should be right in the, there should be a reference into the rulebook for it. Too often we don't see that. Okay, what's up with 962? Only Macedonian phalanxes, which allows them to stack 2 to a hex. In order to do so, it requires a command from the overall commander. To form double depth, the back has to, yeah, so its rules how to get to it. They always use their 4 movement point allowance instead of the 5 that they have on a charge. If movement causes cohesion, both units have it, which makes sense. You can't do any wheeling, you're going straight ahead. It takes 2 individual orders to move them together. Unstacking takes an order. They're completely dense. Even skirmishers probably can't move through them. Their sizes will be combined. Defending against shock attack, they get +1 to their pre-shock die roll. Huh. I wonder if I've been... I haven't been doing that. Only the top unit makes the TQ checks. Unless they're attacked from the rear. Cohesion hits from the shock distributed equally. Fire hits only apply to the top, unless it's through the rear. If either unit routes, they both route. And, oh, if they can't retreat, they're eliminated instead. But I believe these phalanxes are treated the same as the hoplites in terms of route. The double hoplites, because I mean they're carrying those humongous spears. I'll have to look that up as well. Let's see. Double side phalanxes may never rally, so it's not really a big deal. It probably is to your advantage to have them disappear instead of sticking around on the board while they're routing. Anyway, that's what we have there. Here we have shock superiority. Do we have any here? I doubt it. So the phalanx does not end up superior to the hoplites. And obviously the hoplites aren't going to be inferior to the phalanxes when they're attacking. Right then, Greek point of view, I've got a fair position here where I'm not going to get outflanked. I'm at a disadvantage as far as I can tell. I don't want to engage. I'm going to let the Macedonians come forward. And because, in part, because I have this kind of disunited command. So I'm just going to pass over here. Now this is kind of weird. The one reason I chose to play GBOH, I have some other things I really need to get played, but I haven't read the rules to any of them yet because I have this business trip coming up, and God, I got so much to do. I may not finish this scenario. And that was true with anything else that I was talking about. But GBOH is the one thing that I can take up in the middle. You know, if I'm gone for 2 weeks, it's not going to be too tough to get back into the swing of it in the middle of a battle. So I don't actually expect to get this video up until a couple weeks from now. Philip, he suffers the possibility of some kind of ugly terrain here where he's running across two steep banked streams. Now, historically, he didn't just charge across them. His army wheeled, and the Greeks responded in kind. That's difficult with these double-sized phalanxes because they have no capacity to turn. So I'm going to have to break them up if I want to do that. Now these steep... And the original scenario apparently, with that hideous map, actually is the post-wheeled position. So here I'm given an opportunity to do what Philip did not do, if I so desire. That steep bank stream costs movement points, but the biggie is it's going to cost me some quality points. And to tell you the truth, it's 2. And where it's a stream, it's going to cost me 1, unless I form up into column. Now, forming up into column is almost as expensive as crossing the streams in terms of, you know, the effort involved in it, and it leaves me exposed where the Greeks might come forward. So I don't think I want to do that. What I think I want to do is I'm going to try to use the cav to try and outflank the Greek line and make its position less tenable. Now, if I do that, let's take a look at Cav and streams. I think Cav can deal with streams fine. Yeah, Cav has no problem with streams. Only chariots and infantry. And only open up the battle on the one flank. On the other part of the situation, I have to start deploying differently. Maybe stretch my line out so that I can engage where things are just normal stream and I'm not going to suffer as badly. For the end position of the turn, I've moved the heavies, unstacked the phalanxes, and converted the rest of the phalanx. Head to about face, and then put it into column, because otherwise they'd be facing this way. You can only these things apparently turn in one direction better than the other, and because of that, it's kind of like the old World War I heavy rotary action planes, right? Because of that, you have to actually spend more movement to go in one direction than another to set up your column. But my plan is to extend the line out this way and try to hit on that side. Now, the Greeks can do whatever they like. They can swing forward, which, you know, maybe was what they did historically, or they can stand in what's fairly good defensive terrain and just leave part of the battlefield unaligned. They can always shift forces. They have a couple of units in the back end that are in reserve. The problem with that, though, is that these are the Athenians, and only one commander can command the Athenians. A little interesting. Now, I didn't make a roll, and chances are he would have succeeded, and he did. But the Macedonians have no line command eligibility here. I just assumed that all those phalanxes would be eligible, but they're not. We have these different things like the LPs. These are all the Greek ones. There's no equivalent rule for the Macedonians, and if there is no rule, you can't do it. Now, like I said, I could have moved these forward and then done the column in 2 separate commands. He's got a huge range, which could have captured everything. And he can use 6 units. Now, I think I may have actually moved more than 6, because I think I moved these heavies as well. So he would have had to succeed in a second one, which he also would have done. But that's it's an interesting factor. I'm looking at the Greeks, obviously, and I certainly don't want to swing these guys around. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm done with these. I'm thinking about engaging, though, and trying to hit Alexander early. I wish I knew more about this battle, and maybe there's something in the original rules historical about it, because, or I can look, but I don't understand the pivot thing. Which direction would it be going in and why, with both armies pivoting? I'm wondering if what I'm doing is kind of encouraging the Greeks to do the pivot that historically they did. I'm not sure. Whatever happened, I'm sure it ain't this. The Greeks pushing forward on this front, and Philip trumped in. Moved most of the phalanxes across the river, or across this one river, the Hainan here, or stream. And this creates an interesting option for the Greeks where they could charge forward. The problem for them, though, is they've got the same high bank here. And then I'm pulling my column of units forward, really to take up this position and attack here. I'm hoping still to punch through here with Alexander, but I don't know if that's going to happen. He's got kind of an ugly situation where I don't really want to slam Cav into those phalanxes, or those hoplite units. But I also don't really know that I want to deal with those directly. And my own peltists are no better than his, and he's got the sacred band there and stuff like that. So I really have to try to figure out if there's any way that I can kind of break the tip of, or the tip of the flank, as it were, and try to get around that way. If the Greeks charge forward and engage here, I don't know what that means either, because then they have to go over the same kind of lousy terrain that I would. And I got to be careful. I can't just kind of skid over and try to cover the map here, because if I leave a gap here, the Macedonians can run over that stuff. They can take a couple of hits if they absolutely need to. Again, I have some pretty good hypastists here, or whatever the hell they're called, that definitely are more than a match for the Greek left. I piddle around with the Greeks taking a more advanced position here on the streamline. And there's a reason for that, which is I want to be in the better defensive position, not let the phalanxes come across, recover, and then hit me. Well, but the problem is, in order to have a good solid line, and this guy essentially passed, it means that I'm running right up along the river line in some cases. I should have been a little further back. Being on the river line is not a good thing in this system. There's very little penalty to attacking across the river. Let's see. But there's a significant penalty to the attacker if the defender's right across the stream, because then you take the cohesion hit just before you hit. If you have the stream, you don't get any particular defensive benefit, but what you get is if the attacker advances, they get hit by the stream after their advance. I think that's all there is. So the Greeks took up their defensive position. Philip starts pulling his column into place, into a very exposed position, and fails his momentum check. Die roll of doom, la la la, right? Well, that leaves things up to his son, who doesn't exactly have the tools at hand that he wanted. No open flank, nothing like that. He smacked his peltists into the Greek peltists, coming across rivers or streams. Disadvantage here he's taken some hits. You can see he's got a couple of rallied units. Those were units that routed. And his first strike was not effective. But after they got out of the way, the missiles for the peltasts that the Greeks had were no longer there. So the light cav and the heavy cav could charge. Those went in and they routed the Greek line. Now, Alexander did not get his second momentum there. So he actually didn't get to recover as much as he would have. He would have liked to have recovered some of his units so that they're ready for another strike, or else continued on. But I think I would have been recovering units because there's some damage, especially to these peltasts. But who knows? Maybe I could have cleared and gotten behind the Greek line there before they get a chance to really do anything about it. But as it is, he had a fairly effective little turn with what looked like the kind of situation I would have sat there, scratched my head normally, and said, you know, I don't know if I want to attack, and I probably wouldn't have if it hadn't been for this exposure here, but I feel like I had to accelerate the situation there. His units weren't better quality. I mean, the companion cav is, obviously, and actually this is a little better than those peltasts, but the key thing was to strip the peltasts of their missiles with the first attack. Greek center charges into these phalanx columns, and they're still hitting the front of the column, which is a problem because heavy infantry against the front of columns only the 6 table. Their attacker's superior, though, and cause an additional hit when the thing collapses into facing whoever knows which way. I got terrible rolls, and one of the Greeks routed. The other one is still standing there, but not long for this world. I've got this huge gap in my center at this point, trying to move some of these units through this guy into column with the hope of getting him forward. But it looks like Philip's great tactic of marching his units up in column right into the Greek range was brilliant, actually. I gotta see what I can do back here. Oh, Philip manages to smash the rest of that center that stuck its nose out where it didn't belong. And Alexander, on his first activation, routed a cav and attacked the sacred band. Oh, one of his cav actually is part of the cleanup back here. He routed the sacred band. He got a pursuit result. So now he's charging forward, and he's going to hit both the sacred band that's routing and this Theban hoplite that he really didn't want to be running into. Now, so we start with 10.32 until no attacks are possible. Oh, that could create additional. Okay, there's no pre-shock TQ checks, which is a shame because we'd destroy the sacred band immediately if that was the case, and that's worth 9 victory points. Okay. So I'll just resolve that. That's probably not going to work out well. I guess the defender gets to choose his hoplites. So we've got heavy cav hitting heavy infantry straight on. That's a 6. And I got to look to see hitting hoplites straight on. It's not like phalanxes. They don't have quite the advantage, but I think they still have an advantage. Alexander's turn pretty much ended there with a die roll of doom that didn't go anywhere. And so this is our position. 3 hoplite units, the sacred band, and some change adds up to 50 points out of the 75. So it's basically over, but you know, we'll keep playing. I got all of tomorrow, right? I'm working, but I should be able to squeeze out the remainder of this battle. I was very much convinced I wasn't going to be able to finish this battle. before I leave. Okay, so the Greek left is trying to form up a defensive position given the collapse here. Over on the right with the Thebans, they move their hoplite into place, some rallying back here. Another question is, am I going to launch attacks with these? I've used 3 of my 4 activities. I'm probably not going to move anything beyond the river line. But here, I could make an attack against this light cav. I could make it against this heavy cav. These would be advantageous attacks on a very limited level. Like, if we look up, you know, first of all, the heavy infantry versus the light cav probably isn't superior, but no. But if we look at the values on it, heavy infantry versus light cav is a 10. Heavy infantry hitting the... it's also hitting the front there. Hitting the heavy cav is also probably pretty good, 8. I'd get a size bonus, but my line would get deformed by it. So I think I'm not going to even launch any attacks. What I'm going to do, though, is roll for momentum, because I can move those peltasts to help defend. Nope. My extreme flank. And now it's in the Macedonians' court. And the Macedonians largely just rally their forces, get them a little bit more in order, turning stuff like that. Except that Philip's doing his same ploy. He's pushing those columns of phalanx units up to where, oh look, you got another shot. You want it? You want it? I don't see anything the Greeks can do here, in the sense that, you know, if they attack there, they're going to lose a bunch of hoplites. Not necessarily as off the initial attack like they did the last time. I think that was a French guard column they hit. But yeah, in terms of the position they'll be in afterwards, and that's really the problem that the Greeks are sitting in right here, is that no matter what they do, they're going to put themselves out of position unless they just sit where they are. And if they sit where they are, Alexander's going to be able to get his cav behind them and demolish their right flank. No guts, no glory, just charge in, maybe. That may be all I have. At least, you know, some units might be able to break through, and at least I may be able to cause some damage. But yeah, it looks pretty damn hopeless. Trying to get these hoplites or phalanxes into position is really, really rough. So this guy coming in column and having to slide in behind, I had to get a momentum to be able to position him where I wanted to, and then he would of course be fatigued as well. Instead, now I have a gap in my line. This isn't unrealistic. It's just there are some parts of the game that are frustrating in terms of how you have to cope, and this kind of gap happening while you're doing a deployment in the face of the enemy, that's a perfectly reasonable thing, and it's why armies tended to set up as set piece battles and not try to do a lot of counter-marching and such not. Alexander is being kind of a bonehead here. He launched his light infantry to attack the hoplite units. Now, obviously that's not a great choice anyway, and they routed and they're going to leave the board now. But the point was, I needed to clear space for the cav to get through. Launching those attacks would weaken these positions. There was some chance of something breaking, whatever. And the main point, though, was to clear a space as well as to engage those units so they can't get away easily. And they're engaged. Plus, I had a flank attack coming. Well, no, this is supported. It wasn't. I think. Anyway, the net result was not terribly good for them, which was to be expected. But the bad part is Alexander didn't get a momentum. So he didn't get to rally his units. They're going to leave the board. And he didn't get to move his cav up. And he's kind of being a putz overall. Philip, And we don't know how this is going to work out. Also did something not terribly brilliant, perhaps. He launched his phalanx forward. Now, the reason was for that in-column unit, which he did break, and that's not hard to do at all. But he had to launch these other units to protect this unit. Because if you just send one out on its own, it's just going to get swarmed by light units or whatever. Not that there are a hell of a lot of them. But, you know, the idea was, we got a slight advantage hitting them, let's do it. It didn't go well, some bad die rolls. Let's see what his momentum is. And okay, at least we have more of a turn. And now he's got to make a decision. I think he wants to start working with these guys. I've launched this attack. There's not a whole hell of a lot I can do about it. If these move forward, if the Athenians move forward to try to take advantage of this flank hanging out there, I have a bunch of smaller, more maneuverable units I can put into play. But there's no reason to commit them yet, so I'm going to run over to that side, I think, and start setting things up to launch an attack. You know, trying to take advantage of this hole in the center. And still not an optimal position here. All this maneuvering is not good for phalanxes, so I had to... I took the first attack, a second one to put things into this kind of position, and then a third one to recover some units, and I pulled the Hypoptists forward. I figure might as well cover that flank a little bit. You know, if one of them gets hit by one of these, who cares? You know, I mean, first of all, they have a fair chance of being able to do this and protect their flank if need be, whereas the big phalanxes can't do that. I did have the option. I could have run over and rallied a couple of Alexander's units. That might have not been a bad choice. I didn't take it. I feel like the main battle is going to be here instead of over here, simply because of that refused flank and Alexander's kind of showing himself as incompetent. But Philip going over there, that would probably hurt the poor boy's confidence, you know. Let him do what he can over there, right? Maybe he'll grow up and be something someday. The Greeks don't have a lot of option, as I see it. There's a potential for an attack here, but the left flank of the Greek force, I surged them forward with the idea of, well, if I get tremendously lucky, maybe I can win, because otherwise I'm in a lot of trouble, and, you know, I'm going to lose no matter what, right? So I made attacks with the Corinthians, threw an Athenian in, crossing the stream, taking penalties, and then I surged also, I got a line command, surged across the bank here. As you can see, it didn't go well. Two of the units are gone. It's over point-wise. It's just a matter of, you know, counting the bodies or whatever at the end. Actually got a chance to recover some of these units. I'll keep going because I like playing these out, and there's nothing else for me to do on the table before I leave. The center was unable to do anything effectively, no continuation. Going over here to the Thebians, which is sort of the heart of my force. So I may not be understanding or I may not have understood the positional superiority as well as I should have. So this guy could get positional superiority by moving into this hex. This parahex is here. We're going to do that just because we want to launch attacks. He wouldn't have it if he just moves there, though. This unit has to be attacked by a different unit. So we can do this. One. We're not going to be able to make it. Shit. Okay. But anyway, the point is you have to be able to attack a different unit from on that same unit. Now I may be able to slip this thing in. We'll see what I can manage. But I'm basically trying to break some of these phalanxes to claim some sort of, you know, hey, it went better than historically because Alexander kind of didn't do anywhere near what he should have. Otherwise, it looks like Philip's going to win the battle, and Alexander helped, distract the enemy, but he didn't really do as much as he historically did in this battle so far. Okay, several hours later, I still remember where we were. We were discussing whether I could get, some sort of flank attack over here. That didn't happen. Instead, I'm hitting these with flank attacks. That's fine, because this unit's... Oh, wait a minute. Let's do this correctly. This unit's hitting this unit, so now this unit's free to hit this unit's flank. And you can kind of break up the echelon with the counter echelon, and I'm not sure that makes sense, but it's allowed. Over here, I'm going to be making standing shock attacks. And then over here, I tried to get around the side and didn't scare him off and rout him by doing so. He was able to turn. And then I've got this. Now, the question is whether this hoplite unit wants to hit these two so that I can gang up on this valuable cav unit. This is also a valuable, well, not as valuable a cav unit. So it might be worthwhile for me to hit those. And you know what? I forgot to throw a javelin there. Yay! I threw some with the other units, but then I forgot this is a light cav too. The Greeks don't have any heavies. Alright, on to resolution. Okay, the Thebans, you can see, we got a rout here. They managed to chase off a light cav that was here. They did all their damage against it. We did manage to rout one phalanx unit. As far as I can see, Philip can just put this game in his pocket and say, well, that's it. And I see no reason to do otherwise. I mean, yes, I could start the pursuit at this point, but honestly, the entire Greek army is probably throwing their shields down and running at this time. This is very, very heavily in favor of the Macedonians. You can just see they have similar tactical units, but the Macedonian units are all one higher in quality, and that's enough to already make the game, significantly unbalanced. They're about the same size army in terms of the phalanx versus hoplites. And then the Macedonians have the companion cav, which is, pretty damn good cavalry, which you can do quite a bit with. And I just don't see any way the Greeks could win this as the battle is what's historically laid out. Now, one option to make it a little more interesting is they add the option that Sparta shows up. Sparta and Athens didn't tend to fight on the same side, even when faced by an external foe at this point. So it's highly unlikely that they'd both be there, but it gives you some additional troops, and these are Spartan hoplites, which are going to be a little bit better than normal hoplites. First of all, they can use prearranged withdrawal versus enemy infantry, regardless of the movement allowance. Could be a big deal. Could be a minor issue. I haven't found myself wanting to use prearranged withdrawal too much, except they have this reverse move charge. Upon seeming to withdraw, they would all of a sudden reverse direction and charge their opponents. Therefore, after completing the withdrawal as above, the Greek player, if he wishes, may attempt to charge the middle of his opponent's movement in the middle of the opponent's movement order. If he rolls a die, if he gets higher than the Spartan's TQ, the unit takes a cohesion hit and stays in place. Otherwise, they charge by moving forward, paying any cohesion for movement, and then they get to do a shock attack. However, during the TQ checks, if the enemy die roll is higher than its TQ, instead of taking cohesion hit, it just routs. That would be pretty damn impressive against these phalanx units, Not much of a chance, but they do have a 20% chance of just routing when faced with this circumstance. Of course, you have to do the prearranged withdrawal to get that to work, probably, because otherwise they're not going to be fast enough moving backwards. But it's an interesting option. I played, I think the one time I played this scenario with my buddy in Buffalo, he gave me that. but I had no idea, what I was doing in the system as a whole. It didn't work out too well for me. I couldn't figure out anything terribly useful to do, and just got mauled. Although I think I actually killed Alexander. Which is one of the things in this game is, you risk a leader like Alexander, who historically threw himself into the battle again and again and again. And unlike, I'm trying to remember what it is, it may be the Battles of the Age of Reason system, which I have up there, had a special, no, it's Precious Glory, had a special, Frederick can take a bullet, in his Bible or something like that. No, I don't remember what he took it in. He took a bullet on something like his walking stick or something. But he was constantly under fire and right in the midst of things, and just survived it all. And you have a number of leaders who have done that. Napoleon, when he was young, was in that kind of circumstance too. And you can see where that would, inflate somebody's belief in their invulnerability. Alexander took lots of wounds, though. He was the heroic leader extreme. In fact, after he jumped into a city that he was the first to scale the wall of, and fought off all his opponents, and was so grievously wounded that they had to carry him out. After that, he was never quite the same. I think maybe his lung had been punctured or something by the wound. But you gotta. The next time you have someone like this that I can think of, it's Charles the 12th. I'm sure there were, plenty in the medieval era who counted equivalently, but in terms of being willing to risk themselves, probably not in terms of the impressive level of risk that they just consistently put themselves through. Anyway, this was fun. Probably won't be getting back to the Alexander games. I might try to slip one in, but I've got not only the business trip, but after that, I've got 3 games that I'm sort of obligated to do, and I may need little breaks in between, though. We'll see. I usually tend to do breaks, and I don't want to absolutely commit to, I'll get them all out in quick order, because honestly, I'll be really cranky about them, and that won't do anybody any good. Up this goes.